The purpose of this is just for me to practice my communication and articulation skills. And also to recap some of the things I read or listen to. So I heard them mention. Okay, it's okay. This isn't about hearing. When I think about the more I find out about how money actually works, in when people work with a lot of money, and I don't mean like if I were to buy a hot dog, right? It's like that's not what I mean. I mean like the people with a lot of money and what actually goes on with money, the more I realize they're how rich people aren't actually making transactions with the money that we do, because like they say like I'll buy this that's worth this amount of money by making like through leverage. It's like I own this, so I'm gonna buy this from you, but I'm not actually gonna pay you this amount of money. You just have to know that I'll pay you based on the fact that I'm rich. So then they get by and then they use it to make money and then pay it off with the money that they make from this. And this is basically how it works with everything. Like that's how fractional reserve banking works, but that's also how people who own like businesses have assets work as well. It's actually basically also like fractional reserve banking, because you saying because I own this amount, I'm going to basically lend you. I'm gonna borrow this amount from. I'm gonna pay it on credit over time using the money I make from the thing I buy. And they just and they do sell it because sometimes they just don't want to manage it anymore. They don't want to run it, or maybe the person buying it also has the resources to make this thing more successful because of what they own and or their experiences or the people they know or the skill sets they have. So like I mean it's just so like that just kind of explains how there's so much debt, because when you think about it, debt in a way is unnatural. Like I mean it is natural but also unnatural, because like in straight barter there was no debt until like money itself is effectively debt, because you do something for someone and they give you money, which is like delayed debt by them, which is going to be it's like the moving of it's just the moving of debt, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of strange. Now I don't know why I'm even talking about this. It's not actually doesn't actually matter to me. I just wanted to mention how confusing it really gets. Okay. Exercise and diet. This is like the most important stuff, because that's what in everybody's lives. So the way I think it was Sal again in the new Impact Theory episode. I don't even remember. But the way they talk about exercise is very interesting. Actually, it was also someone else. But anyways, basically, the way they say it is that exercise, like for someone whose life is kind of shitty, usually if they start with a lot of them can be the first thing to do is to start by exercising, and it's not because the act of exercise itself solves all the problems, but because the process of exercising can kickstart the transformation process required for them to start changing the various little things in their life that need changing over time to solve the root problem. And I mean, nowadays they just give you antidepressants, medication, this or that. But like stuff like this is just, I mean, it just makes so much more sense. Because like, if most of the time it's just your brain telling you something's wrong, and then they're just giving you medication to basically hide the signals so that way you don't feel pain. So now you don't feel the pain because the signals your brain is sending is that something is wrong. Is you just basically it's like just saying I can no longer. It's like when there's a fire outside and you just close your curtains, so now you can't see the fire. So and now you feel better. Before you're panicking about the fire outside, but now you can't see it, so now you're not panicking and now you feel better. I think it's kind of like now. I'm not saying this works for everyone, or that this is universal, or that you should never take antidepressants or whatever medication. But sometimes medication is kind of like just closing the curtains. Sometimes. Okay, what else? Let me see. The difference between people who are successful in their endeavor and people who are losers in the same endeavor is not that one fails and the other doesn't, but that one fails while the other fails with purpose over and over again. Fails on purpose. I mean, this never give up is like just not exactly useful. It's not about never giving up. It's about never having lost because you gain, like, the metric for success should be whether or not you learned how not to fail the way you just did, right? Because like that's what it is. And the example that Ali Abdaal gave was it was a reference to some book where they suggested that instead of learning, well, like when you're learning something, you imagine you had a jar with 1,000 beads, and every time you made a mistake, you would take a bead out, and your goal when learning was not to get X number of questions right or whatever, but to empty the jar of beads, because your goal, like, you should understand that you're going to make mistakes. So like when you fear failure, it's not failure you fear. It doesn't make sense to fear failure because everyone who succeeds has experienced the same failure that you are avoiding over and over again. But you just don't see it. And the reason you don't see it is because nobody cares. It's like they're famous because they've reached the successful point. But think about, did you know them before they were successful? Nobody knew them. So like when you are failing, nobody actually sees it, which should be liberating. Like that should be positive, because now when you realize this, you just know that all of your failures will be invisible. I'll give you an example. These videos are not good videos. I'm not, if I wanted to be a content creator, all of these videos would be considered failures. But because I'm not already a content creator, then I don't lose anything by making shitty videos, right? If I wanted to be a content creator, I wouldn't be able to make these videos because it would kill my audience. But I don't have an audience because this, it's like I'm not successful. So I don't lose anything by doing this, for example. So for me, I just do this to practice, because it's not because I want to be a content creator, but just because I want to improve my ability to articulate and communicate and work on the processing of my thoughts. And this is also an act of journaling as well. So it's like to condense maybe thoughts that I actually have into words, because a lot of the time when you have these thoughts, you decide that something makes sense and you just feel like you'll remember it and you won't. Or that you feel like it makes sense, but if you were to write it down and try to map it out, you'll realize that it has a bunch of mistakes that were just invisible to you because you just feel like it makes sense. It's almost like you're dreaming. A lot, like when you wake up from a dream, you realize how little it made sense, or like how many holes there were in the logic. Like maybe you're on a ship that was swimming through, swimming through lava, and then there was just monkeys jumping up and down on your shoulder, and you were drinking a tub of ice cream. It's like it just. I mean, that actually makes more sense than most dreams do. But it's so hard for me to even use an example because of how little sense they make. But then when you wake up, you either forget everything, realize they don't make sense, or uh, or feel like you didn't even have a dream, or maybe you just remember the feelings you had while dreaming. And when you think about it, like a lot of your thoughts from hour to hour and moment to moment are actually like that too. Like for example, if you're to write down your thoughts, a lot of them are not going to make sense once they reach the paper. A lot of your thoughts are not going to make sense once you read them back an hour later. A lot of your thoughts you're gonna forget, no matter how reasonable you felt in the experience of having them originally. And maybe you'll just feel, oh, I thought something earlier and I felt that it was very funny, but I don't remember what I thought. Or if you did remember it, it just wouldn't even be funny anymore because it doesn't make sense. So it's like, it's the word, the art of language isn't actually that effective at communicating feelings precisely. The point of it is just to for us to prescribe it a definition that we agree on, and then from there we try to communicate our language. And that's all, like the level of language we have and have been developing over the thousands of years is the main facilitator for why humans are so much more advanced than other species, because we can communicate and build on top of the past and previous generations. But we are not like on the level where I can insert my thoughts, feelings, and my state of being that I am experiencing into your brain. Like if I could just like look at you and you would feel everything I'm feeling, including the way I feel about my thoughts, then like that would be like that's the limit of communication, right? Obviously it's impossible, but my point is like that's the gap between communication with language and are trying to transmit the transmission of meaning. So there's going to be all we can do is try to improve our articulation to do this as best as possible, and that's the difference in communication skills, which is why actually you have the charismatic leaders who can articulate their feelings, for example, in a way that other people can picture. And the example that is easiest for me to use is the one I hear the most when people were talking about this concept, which is Martin Luther King. I have a vision of an America where black kids and white kids are holding hands or and stuff like that. Like, you know, it's like you can't just say I want to end racism. You have to have something where you can see and feel. You can feel the same feelings he has, or to the best that he can communicate it, which is, you know, like that's what makes them charismatic, I guess. That's my theory right now in this moment. I'll probably it's not a found theory. I developed it over the last 2 minutes of speaking, so it's not a very cohesive theory. Okay, where was I? How did I get here? Yeah. So anyways, that's why I'm making these videos. That it's not okay, hold on. Not because I want to be a charismatic leader, but just because I want to improve my ability to convey my thoughts and meanings, and as well as to check to make sure that my thoughts aren't either full of holes or make no sense, because the process of taking thoughts I have and trying to articulate it is a process where I catch, oh, that doesn't make sense, or that's not, like, that's just meaningless, or this and that, right? It's like I catch the issues, and so I'm left with notes that are actually kind of make sense. Let me see, do I have anything else? Yeah, so earning, like, it doesn't matter what you want in life, whether it's earning money, having a healthy relationship, or I mean, if you're a woman, maybe being a career woman, maybe being a housewife, maybe if you're um, depressed, it's getting out of depression, or if you're just if you have none of these issues, but you have a goal, which is to have a happy life, or maybe you want to create a business that creates the best, or maybe you like, say, baseball, and you want to create the new baseball that is going to be better than the current baseball, because it's going to have better dynamics. It's going to, I don't know, maybe it's going to have a way for you to I don't know. I'm saying random shit. This doesn't make sense. Okay, maybe you care about the environment. You want to make, let's say, this particular source of pollution to be you're looking for a, say, I don't know enough about global warming. Maybe you want to reduce the forestry business so that there's more trees in the world. Like, and then whatever goal you have, it's a simple process. It's simple but difficult. And that is that you have to be a problem solver. That's all it really is. And so you can't just say, I want this result, but I don't want this process. Because the process. So it's like when you look at what you want to do, you have to decide, you have to find a process, because what you want to do is going to be difficult. Other people are not going to want to do it. And that's what makes it have value. So you have to find something that you're willing to do that other people are not. And so that's why they say follow your passion and work won't really feel like work, but that's not actually effective. You can't just discover your passion. So the key to passion, really, passion, or following your passion, is really just finding something that you find easy to do that other people find difficult. And what that means, easy to do doesn't mean when you're doing it, it's you can progress naturally, or you get better very fast. I mean, that could mean that, but it is the action of doing it is a process that you don't find takes energy away. It gives you energy. Where a process that gives you energy, a process that achieves a goal, in which the process gives you energy, where it would take away energy for other people. So the example that someone gave was some female tennis player or something who would just train and practice all the time because she enjoyed it, and so she would practice more than everyone else, because everyone else requires willpower to train more hours, whereas she does it, and it doesn't cost willpower for her to do more of it. Now, obviously, maybe when it rains, or maybe if she doesn't feel great, during those days she'll need the willpower to do it anyway, like if she has excuses. But really, excuses are just reasons. And the people who do, and when you do it despite the reasons, the valid reasons, that's what discipline is. It's you can have all the excuses, all the valid reasons. Excuses can be valid, but that's why some people say like that's why excuses are so looked down upon, because it's not that your excuses are invalid reasons to not do it. It's just that your excuses don't mean that you can't do it. They could be sufficient reasons for you to not do it, or for them to not do it, or for most people to not do it, or that most people would decide that it is sufficient reason to not do it. But to do it, even though it is sufficient reason to not do it, is what makes a difference between this person and this person. But despite all of that, despite that being what discipline is, if during the majority of the time when doing it, you'll have to use discipline and willpower to get over the bad times, But if the general act itself is an act that does not require willpower for you, for example, whether for some people maybe it's writing, you just write for 3 hours a day, maybe in your own journals. You're not trying to be an author, but you write 3 hours a day. Whereas for other people, they might go, how do I set myself up to write 3 hours a day? I want to be a writer. It's like if you need to go through all of this to get yourself to write 3 hours a day, you probably shouldn't be a writer. It's like that kind of contrast, right? It's like you have to figure out a way to get you to do it 3 hours a day, whereas you just do it 3 hours a day for yourself because you're not focused on the action for the result. You're doing the action because you want to do the action. That's the difference. So I think that's what it really means to follow your passion. You don't have to. It's not about finding this one occupation where, as you do it, it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's when you do something, and it doesn't even have to be an occupation, right? It's like you don't have to make money from it. The act of following your passion means that you do it even when there's no benefit, no tangible benefit. Now, you can try to find ways to turn your passion into an occupation eventually, or, but that's separate. And oftentimes, a lot of the times, the act of trying to make it work as your full-time job actually ruins your passion for you, because you end up having to deal with the logistics, the taxes. You have to cater to your customers. You have to figure out a way that people will buy it. You have to deal with the prices. You have to deal with all the auxiliary stuff outside of the action itself. For example, as an example, maybe a streamer is playing his games that he likes, and then but he wants to make it of his full-time job. Then he needs to start doing. He needs to make sure that he plays games in a way that doesn't lose viewers. Like if he starts, swearing at viewers, if he starts playing other games, if he talks to people that are controversial or whatever, and then he has to worry about making editing, going maybe sponsors and all of these things, and then maybe he won't enjoy it anymore. So it's like now at a certain point, or like pro gamers, if you look at these pro gamers, they're like, they enjoy the game, they get good at the game, they join a team, and now they have to practice every single day, which is fine, but then they have to like adapt their strategies to the meta every single day based on the advice, and then they have to analyze all of the statistics, all of the patches, all of these, and then it can take, and then eventually what started out as something they did for fun becomes something they do and it becomes work, right? It's like and then they're not passionate about it anymore, and it gives them, for like the pro players example, right, or like pro athletes, eventually you can reach a point where you're more doing what you do to avoid risk and loss and anxiety and fears, rather than what you're going towards, because you're already doing it professionally, but you're afraid of maybe injuries, you're afraid of losing your place because of competition. In sports teams, competition is so high. For example, if your performance drops or goes down for a period of time, you can get replaced, and like all of these things. So at a certain point, you just don't want to lose your career. If you're playing on a physical sports team, if you get an injury, you can actually that if you play on a video game, actually, and injuries can affect you too, and like now you're worried about losing what you have more than you are about gaining something you want or doing something you enjoy. And so there is that too. But Well, basically, there is no magic formula where you find something and now your life is just solved forever. Like there's no one thing you can have that makes your life like all sunshine and rainbows. You're always gonna have problems to solve. You're always gonna have things that you have to do that you won't enjoy. You just have to accept that. I've recently accepted that, but here, if you are a problem solver, then you can slowly start looking at problems, getting rid of problems, and one day, if you solve the problems in the right way, you can greatly reduce the amount of things you have to do that you don't enjoy. Without being rich. Because here's the other thing about business. Actually, we're already at 25 minutes. I'll talk about this tomorrow.